Your show will go live in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Blog Talk Radio.
What's good? Combat Conversation fam, we're back. I see you, bro. Got started already, man. We're back, man. We're back with another Sunday episode of Combat Conversation. No fights taking place this past week, so we don't have the results thereof to discuss. But we will be discussing, if things go as planned, the next event that the UFC has scheduled, which will be UFC Fight Night, this coming Saturday on May the 30th. We'll have a main event and a pretty decent card that we'll talk about on that schedule. And we will hopefully have boxing returning soon. We don't know. We'll find out. And another hot topic that the last 2 weeks apparently, that's been coming up. It's been a bit of a debate on the last 2 episodes, and I said that I would make it, or I would at least attempt to make it a topic, and it's been talked about. I know I've been talking about it for the last few weeks in a lot of different Facebook groups and on discussions, and we'll talk about when or when not to stop the fight. We will see. So we'll talk about that today as well. That should be an interesting one right there. Because I'm kind of riding the fence on that. You know me, again, I always say I try to be as unbiased as I can when I'm sitting in this seat. But we never know. We'll find out. We'll see what how that turns out. So let's start off by talking about this week's upcoming scheduled events, which apparently, and hopefully it'll go forward as planned, will be UFC Fight Night this Saturday on May the 30th. Currently, the plan is for UFC to have this fight at the UFC Apex in Las Vegas. But, of course, that's still pending approval from the NSAC and the Nevada State Athletic Commission to determine whether or not the pandemic will affect them being able to have the event there in Vegas or not. So we'll have to wait and see and find out. They're going to apparently have a meeting on May the 7th, which is my birthday actually, this Wednesday, yes. They're going to have a meeting to find out whether or not, or discuss whether or not they will be able to move forward with having the scheduled event in Vegas this Saturday. So we'll find out whether or not we're going to get the thumbs up or the thumbs down for this Saturday's events on Wednesday, after they have their parent meeting on Wednesday. If they don't agree to have it, depending on how much of an open up Vegas is going to do, that's going to crash. It's going to crash the event, because I don't see them being able to find a different arena to have it in on that short of notice, especially with the event will only be that's Wednesday. The event will be only 3 days away, and I know the last few events that they've had since they started having the fights again have been down in Florida on what they're calling Fight Island. I don't see them being able to move that down to Florida within 2 to 3 days notice. So hopefully Vegas will give them the green light to go ahead and have the event this Saturday in Vegas at the UFC Apex. Of course, the Nevada State Athletic Commission governs all of that, so they will have to be the ones to give them the green light to move forward in Vegas and have the event that's scheduled there. So if they do move forward with the event, as I see that, I hope that they will. It looks like they will, but of course you never know for sure. Looks like they will have on that card, the main event is going to be former welterweight champ and #1 ranked welterweight Ty Woodley. Tyron Woodley, who is 19-4, he's going up against the #6 ranked Gilbert Burns, who is 18-3. Now, Ty, the former champ, Ty hasn't fought since he lost that welterweight belt to Usman by unanimous decision back in March of last year. It'll be interesting to see how, I always try not to, well, you never know, depending on a fighter's training regimen, and which I'm sure also has been affected by the pandemic because a lot of gyms were closed and a lot of fighters weren't able to train as much and as much as they would like to, obviously. So I don't know how much ring rust, will be a factor in this. And as it looking at the previous events that they've had since they started the fights back up, UFC 249, then we had the 2 previous UFC Fight Nights this past week. I don't think it will affect him that bad. We'll have to wait and find out. But Ty Woodley is going to go up against Gilbert Burns. Of course, Ty being the former welterweight champ, he's ranked #1. And you have #6 ranked Gilbert Burns. And I understand that Ty hasn't fought since March of last year, March of 2019. But, he's on a mission right now. He's looking to get a rematch with Usman to get that belt back. But Burns, who's moving up in the rankings, or at least attempting to move up in the rankings, he's on a bit of a win streak, man. He's coming off a first-round TKO win over Damian Maia back in March, and he's won like 5 or 6 in a row. Well, maybe like 4 or 5 in a row, but he's been on a bit of a win streak. And if he can beat Ty to move up in the rankings, I'm not sure how much that would affect his chances of getting a title shot with Usman. But let me see, looking at the rankings now, I always keep the rankings on my tab, and I'm looking at the welterweight rankings right now. And of course, Usman the champ, Ty's #1. You got Colby right there under Ty, but Usman already beat the hell out Mega Man, Colby Covington. You got Masvidal, you got Leon Edwards, and you got Stephen Wonderboy Thompson all in front of Burns to try and get a title shot with Usman. And I'm just saying that with it being dependent upon upon Burns being able to beat Ty Woodley. And Burns is hot right now. Again, he's on maybe a 4 to 5 fight win streak. I would have to pull up his tab to look at his fight record and his history. But looking at his resume, Burns is on a bit of a streak. I'm not sure if I see him beating Ty right now with as focused as I would like to believe Ty Woodley is at this moment. He wants that belt back. Can he beat Usman right now? That's left to be determined, referring to Ty Woodley. But right now, he has to get past the hot streak obstacle, which is Gilbert Burns. So we'll wait and see. We'll find out. But Ty Woodley is definitely on a mission, man. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys think? Who do you see winning this fight? Do you see Ty Woodley winning this fight? Do you see Gilbert Burns winning this fight? I'm imagining, I'm saying that, imagining how the rematch between Ty Woodley and Gilbert Burns, Gilbert Burns, and Kamaru Usman would go. But again, I don't want to look too far into the future. We'll deal with the right now, which is Ty Woodley and Gilbert Burns. But Gilbert has looked good his past few fights. As a matter of fact, let me pull up Gilbert's tab. Because I'm sitting there looking, Woodley should win it. My man Damon, what's good, baby? I would like to believe so. If I was betting money, I would bet on Ty Woodley. But I'm not saying that to discredit Burns because he's looked really good. I just don't see him beating Ty right now. My man Justice, what's good, bro? I think it's a bad matchup for Woodley style-wise. Talk about that for a minute, Justice. Explain. When you say style-wise, are you referring to, I guess, Woodley being more of a grappler than a striker, and Burns being more of the striker? because Burns has won most of his fights, especially and more particularly during this streak via KO TKO. If that's what you mean, then yes, I can see that. My only question is, would it be enough to beat a guy who will smother you, a grappler who will smother you, a wrestler who will smother you like a Ty Whitley? I don't know. Burns is a grappler. Burns is a grappler. You know what? Let me see. I'm about to pull up his tab right now. For Burns to be a grappler, if he's a grappler like you say he is, and I'll take your word for it. I'm about to pull it up now, though. He's won the most of his fights. Let me see. And if I am wrong, I will stand corrected. You know what? And yes, I was incorrect. You are right. He is a second-degree black belt in BJJ. He has won the majority of his fights by submission. Yes, he has. He has 18 wins. He's won half of them by submission, 6 by KO or TKO, 4 by decision. So I stand corrected. Yes, he is a BJJ black belt. So, well, that raises another question, Injustice. Do you think that he is a better grappler than Ty Whitley? Of course, I'm about to pull up Ty's tab right now. So, and you know what, though? I can see maybe, and this is just my opinion, why you're saying that, and looking at how Ty lost to Usman. If that's why you're saying it, then I would agree. But I'm just saying that considering the class of fighters that we have here. Let me see. All right, so as I'm saying that, as I'm thinking about what you're saying here, Justice, and I'm about to pull up Ty's tab now. And as I hit it, let's see what we got here. Okay, so although Gilbert is a second-degree black belt in BJJ, you got Ty Whitley. He's a black belt in BJJ, and he's a world-class NCAA Division I wrestler. So he's a gold medalist in the Big 12 championship. Ty Whitley is. I got to be honest, Justice, man. I'm just trying to see how difficult that matchup would be for him if they both are good grapplers, man. Apparently, both of these guys are great world-class level grapplers. He poses a threat, and Burns trains with Usman. Oh, you know, I did not know that. If Burns trains, that can potentially throw a bit of a monkey wrench in Ty Whitley's game. I don't. It depends on how he attacks, how Burns approaches this fight. I did not know he trained with Usman. Oh, you know what? How did I miss that? They're both on the American Top Team, aren't they? Yeah. So how did I miss that? But wow, that's crazy. I do think it'll be a good matchup. I think it'll be a great grappling style fight. You know, that's my thing. But Woodley beat Damian Maia. Yes, Woodley did beat Damian Maia. I'm looking at Ty Woodley's tab right now, and Ty beat Damian Maia. He beat him by UD though. It wasn't I guess it was a decisive victory. I don't know. But he did beat Damian Maia. How do you think that would fit into the rankings though, my man Damon? Because looking at that, I'm referring to Ty Woodley's history as far as his resume. I don't know how much of that would affect his fight with Burns. Damian Maia is ranked number 7 right now. Burns is ranked 6. So, I'm not sure, bro. I mean, I don't know. I don't think that. I see what you're saying, Justice. I do. I mean, I see what you're saying too, Damon. But I'm not sure. Looking at both of their skill sets, I don't think it would be an easy win for either one of them. I'm just trying to assume, even now with figuring out or finding out that Burns trains with Usman, how much of a difficulty he would be for Ty Whitley. I think it's going to be an interesting matchup, man. I do. I think it's going to be an interesting fight. I see Ty Whitley winning this fight, man. I just think that, let me see. I'm looking at the experience. The skill set is, I would like to give that, I would lean a little bit more towards Ty Woodley, because not only is he a black belt in BJJ, he has a pretty substantial wrestling background as well in his history. And I don't see that being in, even though he's a second degree, Burns is, it leads me to believe that Ty Woodley would be a more well-rounded grappler with the wrestling background and the BJJ background. But we'll have to wait and see. Hopefully, they'll be able to move forward with this fight Saturday, depending on what the meeting they have and the outcome, depending on the outcome of the meeting they have in Vegas this Wednesday. So they will be meeting with the NSAC, the Nevada State Athletic Commission, this Wednesday on the 27th, which is also my birthday. They will be meeting to find out if Vegas will allow them to move forward with this fight at the UFC Apex Center. Of course, with all the restrictions they're having regarding this pandemic. So we'll find out. We'll find out Wednesday. Also on this card, let me know what y'all think, man. Tell me what you think. What do you think? Do you think they'll be able to move forward with the fight? Who do you think will win the fight? Do you think Ty Woodley's going to win? Do you think Gilbert Burns is going to win? Keep it jumping on the Facebook feed. Keep it jumping on the IG Live feed. Or, as usual, you can always call in 516-590-0996. Combat Conversation. Talk to me. Let me know what you think. So, also on that card, we have a nice heavyweight scrap that's planned for that evening. Two heavyweights. You got number 12 ranked Blagoy Ivanov. He's 18-3 with a 2-2 UFC record. And he's going up against number 13 ranked Augusto Sakai. He is 14-1 and he is undefeated in the UFC. I've been following Augusto a little more than I have Blagoy. This kid is, I'm going to say kid, but he's a little dangerous, man. The thing with Ivanov is he's coming off of a close split decision loss to Derek Lewis, the Beast, back in November. Neither one of those fighters seemed I was kind of, I guess I could say, underwhelmed by that fight, in a fight that I thought could have went either way with the split decision. I actually agreed with that decision for that fight back in, November, because it seemed as in the latter rounds that Derek was doing a little more. He was the more active, maybe the more aggressive fighter. But I don't know. It seems as if now, I guess he's trying to find his place in the heavyweight division, being kind of somewhere in the middle of the tier, ranked at towards the bottom middle, I guess if you want to call it that. Ranked number 12, trying to move up some more. But the problem with that is he's 2-2 in his last 4 fights. So that's not a good look if you're trying to move up in the rankings. You never know. But see, with that being said, you got Sakai, Augusto Sakai. He's been on a tear as well. He's been running through the latter portion of the heavyweight division, man. He's on a 5-fight win streak. And this kid is a dangerous striker. He is. He's a dangerous striker. He has 11 of those 14 wins by either KO or TKO. Again, he's 14-1. He's undefeated in the UFC. And I'm telling you, the heavyweight division, or just the fans in general, should keep an eye on this kid, man. He has a very promising future moving up in the ranks, man. I don't know. I'm thinking of the heavyweight division and thinking of monsters inside of that UFC heavyweight division, like Francis Ngannou and Stipe. And when I see younger fighters or newer fighters, and newer to the UFC, he's not new in the sense regarding MMA, because this is not his first stint. He made the transition from Bellator over to the UFC back in 2018, as Ivanov did as well. Both of these fighters have moved from Bellator to the UFC. But this kid Sakai, he's you take notice when you see kids that are big finishers like that. I don't know how well he would fare against a knockout artist, even with him being a knockout artist himself, with a guy who's such a powerhouse like an Ngannou or a well-rounded heavyweight like a Stipe. I don't know. That's left to be determined. Hopefully we'll find out, depending on how well he does with this fight. But I promise you that Dana will be taking notice, especially with the ranking system, the way it's put together. And he'll wind up moving up, man, because this kid, again, he's undefeated in the UFC. He's 14-1. He looks really good. He's a dangerous striker. He likes to put on the show. He likes to finish. Those are the type of things that get you moved up in the rankings, especially when they're attached to a lot of W's. That does it. So we'll find out. We'll see. But those are the two main fights. There are also some fights that are on the undercard we'll check out with that UFC Fight Night. That UFC Fight Night that's going to be taking place, again, this Saturday, May the 30th. Hopefully, Vegas will give them the green light. We won't find that out until Wednesday. I hope this meeting goes well, man. Please, NSAC, please, Nevada State Athletic Commission, let this go forward safely. And I understand that they want to move forward and do everything in the safest manner possible. And the last three events, this will be the fourth event since they've returned to hosting fights. You had UFC 249 2 weeks ago. Then the past week, we had two UFC Fight Nights. We had one that Wednesday. Then we had another one that Saturday. And of course, they had, for obvious reasons, they hosted the events without fans in attendance, which behind that, they didn't lose a lot of money because of the pay-per-view draws. That's something else we'll talk about. I have that attached to another topic in a few, but we'll discuss that as well. So since we're on that subject, that brings us to boxing. Well, call in, man. Let me know what you guys thought, man. You can always let me know what you guys thought. Let me know what you think, who you think will win, or what do you think that this next UFC card will look like this Saturday. Let me know. Post your comments on the Facebook live feed. Post your comments on the Instagram live feed. Call in. Let me know what's up. 516-590-0996 and talk to me. But there is a hint, or at least there is some sort of promise, that it looks like we will have boxing back soon. I know a lot of times, this is my third show back since we've started back with the podcast, and since Combat Sports has been hosting events and has been back professionally. And we've discussed on the two previous shows and on this show how the pandemic has not only affected combat sports, but just sports as a whole. And it brought it to pretty much a standstill. And it appears that at least, we've seen that the UFC was able to put plans in place to at least bring their sport back to some sort of normalcy, or at least to be working towards that. And it appears that boxing is going to follow the same suit, at least according to Top Rank's Bob Arum. And after speaking to Bob Arum, it looks like they are going to shoot for June 9th, the week of June 9th, to start hosting events again. They said they have not made the announcement via Top Rank because they want ESPN, who is paying them for the boxing deal, wants to make the announcement as a weekly package deal, because it appears as if that in order to make a lot of the money lost back, they're going to hold multiple fights throughout the week, as far as putting them on air as package deals for ESPN throughout that week. So it looks like boxing will be back in the very near future. Of course, according to if these things go as planned, if a lot of these meetings that they're having, we just spoke about the Nevada State Athletic Commission having a meeting this Wednesday to see if the UFC Apex Center will be allowed to be opened up. So it looks like boxing is going to take the same approach. And when I say the same approach, if you have been following the UFC since they've reopened or started hosting events again, you'll see that they've been having their events without fans in the stands. And they don't lose a lot of revenue behind that because apparently the way that their payouts are set up, the UFC makes the majority of their money via pay-per-view buys. Let me give you an example. The UFC 249, that was the one they had roughly 3 weeks ago. We talked about that on the podcast where I initially came back. UFC 249 had roughly 700,000 pay-per-view purchases. So if you do the math on 700K, the UFC purchase, excuse me, I finally did get the YouTube feed going. Like I said, I thought it was interrupted, but it's not. We're good. Okay, so 700,000 pay-per-view purchases for the UFC. So now, 700,000 at roughly $65 a pop. So that gives you 700,000 times 65. That's roughly $45.5 million. So it's not like they had fans in attendance, so they didn't make money off of concessions and they didn't make money off of ticket sales because those things were non-existent for those past 3 events. There were no fans in the stands. So, in reality, which is how they usually do, they clean up on pay-per-view purchases, which is why ESPN Plus has the sole rights to UFC. You can't just buy them on a regular pay-per-view like you used to go into your Xfinity account or your Dish TV account and, you would just purchase. They don't have that anymore. They have ESPN has the rights. That's why the UFC Fight Nights are on ESPN Plus. You have to go through ESPN Plus to purchase your pay-per-view. They have the rights. And that's how they make the majority of their money. Even with the fighter payouts, looking at the fighter payouts for that pay-per-view, even though some of it is a bit confusing, you see how that they have the tiers set up. For the fighter payouts, I'll shoot you some numbers. You had Justin Gaethje. He fought Tony Ferguson for that interim lightweight belt. Justin received $350K. And you had Tony Ferguson who received $500,000. Even though Justin won the fight, again, that was whatever the deal dictated. You had Henry Cejudo, who was the champion and who successfully defended his title. He racked up about $350K. Dominic Cruz, who he fought against, racked up about $300K. Francis Ngannou, he says he earned about $260K. And these are just some numbers that they put up regarding the fighter payouts. You had Calvin Kattar, he got about $116,000, but that included 30% of Jeremy Stevens' fight purse because he missed weight. And because he missed weight, he only racked up about $47,000. Stevens did. And I know a lot of times that the UFC pays their fighters also according to tier level. Like the champion makes a certain amount, then you go down to the number 1 contender or the interim champ, he makes a little bit less. Then from rank number 1 on down to number 2, 3, 4, they go down the tier in regards to their pay scale. It's my understanding that boxing does not work that way. A lot of their pay scale is more so accumulated on ticket sales. And of course, that is dependent upon what type of promotion deal you have. If you're like a Floyd Mayweather who has your own promotion, Mayweather Promotions, you're not dependent upon that because you pretty much write your own ticket. And I think Oscar De La Hoya had the same type of deal. But for the most part, they deal with ticket sales. So I'm not sure how them returning and not having the fans in the stands, I'm not sure how significant an effect that will have on their revenue and what they're going to do to change that, because they're not going to do that if it's going to cause them to miss a whole lot of money. So, I don't know. I don't know how they're going to, I guess that's something that they're attempting to work out now. And if somebody else has information on that, please feel free to enlighten me. I'm all ears. But I know that they aren't going to be able to accumulate the same amount of revenue or bring that same amount in as they have before because they're not doing the ticket sales. So I'm sure that's going to change. How they're going to change that, at this point, I'm not sure. But I'm assuming we'll find out in the near future. Again, if they get the green light to move forward with those events. And a lot of that depends upon whatever sanctions are in place that have to be removed or opened up due to the current pandemic. We will find out very, very soon. But again, it says that ESPN has asked them to not announce the individual events because they want to announce the events as a weekly package because basically they're the ones paying out the money. And Bob Arum even said himself, we don't have ticket sales to rely on, so whatever they're asking, we're going to go along with. Most of this report I got off of ESPN. It says all involved parties, including boxing, the event, the ESPN is going to be hosting it, the fighters, the promoters. They appear to be exploring the possibility that the shows will all be held at the same location, again, in Vegas. So this meeting that the UFC is having this Wednesday with the Nevada State Athletic Commission is very, very important in regards to them moving forward. We'll find out. We'll know soon. But yes, after they had that meeting in Vegas, it's going to attempt to minimize the amount of risk associated with them holding the events during the pandemic. And he says that they're going to have to be very innovative in figuring out how to do that. So, let me know what you guys think. Do you think we're going to see boxing? Do you think they're going to give them the green light? Do you think that we're going to see those fights in the near future? Do you think it's going to happen on their targeted date, which is June 9th? We're going to have to wait and see. There's so much riding on this meeting that they're having Wednesday in Vegas. So I'll definitely, when I see or find out the results of that meeting, I will definitely post it on the website, on the blog site, on the Facebook page, on the Twitter page, on all the corresponding social media pages, because that's going to let us know what events we'll have in store, at least to talk about next Sunday. But as of right now, at least, it looks like they'll be moving forward. Yeah, we'll have to wait and find out. But let me know what you guys think. As always, post your comments on the Facebook feed. Post your comments on the IG live feed. My man Sean, you're welcome. Always a pleasure, bro. Without a doubt, my man. Absolutely. I said you. And always keep the comments jumping on the Facebook feed. Keep the comments jumping on the IG live feed. Always, you can call in, man. 516-590-0996. Wow. Before we wrap up, give me 1 second. Hey, can you make sure that door is closed all the way out? I don't want him opening that because he's crazy. All right, so one of the topics we talked about within the past two shows was, and this has been a hot topic, man. I know I talked to a couple people about this on the last two shows, on some Facebook groups, on my page. Let me see, my man Justice, I think Top Rank will have to follow plans similar to the UFC blueprint. I totally agree with that, Justice. If they want to move forward, they will. My only question would be, and my dad used to always say, and I'm pretty sure everyone has heard this saying before, always follow the money. I don't see how, with the majority of the money they make relying on ticket sales, I'm curious, and I'm sure that they'll put their brains together and figure it out, but I'm curious as to how they'll make enough revenue to not be in the red without the ticket sales. Because those fans in attendance, which is if they're following the UFC's blueprint, because the UFC is making the majority of their money off of pay-per-views, which because of the pandemic right now is looking a little bit genius. But things change. You adapt, you adjust, you make way to keep things going, and in their case, make a profit. But I'm just curious to find out how they'll make that money and big enough to not be in the red without them relying on the ticket sales. And of course, with a lot of ticket sales, it also means a lot of revenue in concessions and merchandise and memorabilia, because you're going to have fans there. No ticket sales, no fans. No fans, no concession money. No concession money. No memorabilia money. No, it's just a domino effect that you see taking place. And as you said, which is, I agree, the UFC's blueprint had a failsafe to get around that with the money they make off of their ESPN pay-per-view deal. So, do I agree with you that they will follow that blueprint? Yes, I do. Do I know how they're going to make their money back if they decide to follow that blueprint, which it appears they will? I have no idea. I'm anxious to see how they do it. And again, I'll say once again, all of this is dependent upon this meeting that they're having this Wednesday, which you know you're going to get tired of hearing me say. This is my birthday, the 27th. They're having this meeting Wednesday. This meeting is key. This meeting is major. So we'll find out after Wednesday. Now, to the what appeared to have been the hot topic for the past couple of shows, we talked about when and or when not to stop a fight. One of my sayings here on the podcast is I try to be as unbiased as I can be. Sitting in the seat, my man Sean, did you hear about Ken Shamrock wanting to fight Mike Tyson? Yes, Sean, I actually did hear about that. To my knowledge, Mike is only interested in fighting regarding exhibition fights. He made it known that he wanted to put on some exhibition fights and would use the money that was earned from those fights to donate and or help a lot of kids' charities. Mike made reference of him having a troubled childhood himself, and that would be one of his ways of giving back to the youth. I'm not sure if Shamrock was one of the people that he made reference to fighting, but I did hear about that, Sean. I did hear about, oh my goodness, Deuce, what are you doing? I'm sitting here, one of my dogs is being a big, huge baby right now. I did hear about him attempting to fight Mike Tyson. Oh, well, issuing a challenge, so to speak, to Mike. I have not heard anything regarding Mike answering that challenge concerning any one of his, which looks like seems to be exhibition fights. So I will keep an ear out for that. I haven't heard anything regarding that yet, but yes, I did hear about that. But now we talked about when or when not to stop a fight. Before we discuss this, I'll give two quick examples. Last week, there was, what was it, Wednesday, which UFC Fight Night was that? It was the previous week. You had two UFC Fight Nights. You had one Wednesday and you had one Saturday. My man, D, what's good, baby? The UFC Fight Night that took place on Wednesday, you had, I'm saying it was the Wednesday, but because yes, it was Saturday, was the Overeem fought Harris that Saturday. So Wednesday was the Anthony Smith versus Glover Teixeira. There was controversy with that stoppage. The controversy concerning that stoppage was a lot of people felt that the referee and the corner of Anthony Smith took way too long to stop that fight. The results of the beating that Anthony took from Glover, he received a broken nose, a broken orbital bone, two of his teeth were knocked out, and he had a severe cut under his right eye. Was it the right eye? Yes, the right eye. For the last I want to say the second half of the second round, the latter half of the second round, and for that third round, Anthony took a bit of a beating. And of course, Anthony, being the fighter that he is, Anthony, if there was any question about Anthony Smith's heart, all those questions should be gone. And of course, he is the type of fighter that has said, quote unquote, he wants to go out on his shield. meaning that he's the type of fighter that no matter the amount of beating that he takes, he literally would rather have his body carried out of the ring than to quit or give up. As crazy as that may sound, there's a certain level of respect that comes with that as well. Which is a lot of times you hear coaches and referees and promoters saying, even other fighters saying, there are certain fighters that you have to protect from themselves. The Anthony Smith fight and the results thereof was a great example of that. So that was one side of that coin. Now, looking at the other side of the stopping the fight coin, you have the previous week, that Saturday, where we saw at UFC 249, you had the Cejudo fight, where Henry Cejudo was fighting, defending his the lightweight belt against Dominic Cruz. Sorry, let me make sure I got that right. That was, yes, it was. I'm sorry, my tabs got a little crossed up there. There we go. Okay, yes, he was going against Dominic Cruz, and well, he's retired now, so I don't know if he who's going to be the interim, or if they're going to have something concerning the interim championship for that division. But he successfully defended his title against Cruz. My man Darren, the refs always get a raw deal, whether it's too soon or too late. Yeah, you're right, Darren. It's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't type of deal. Because if you stop it too soon, and then your fighter or that fighter's corner gets upset, you're going to catch flack. But then if you go too long and you let the fighter take too much of a beating, then they're going to say, what'd you do that for? So, I definitely see what you mean, man. It's kind of like a damned if you do, damned if you don't. But looking at that Dominic Cruz-Henry Cejudo fight, there was a point in that second, was it the second round? It was the second round. And it was a pretty good fight up to that point. I felt as though Dominic was doing more to win. I'm sorry, Cejudo won that first round. But in that second round, I'll get there in a second. In that second round, Cejudo caught Dominic with a nasty knee, and he dropped Dominic. So, of course, Cejudo, as he rightfully should, went on the attack. He went in and started attempting to finish Dominic. Had Dominic down, started hitting him with a little ground and pounds, trying to work him over. Now, as Cejudo was doing this, you could physically and visibly see Dominic getting up. As Dominic was getting up, the ref called the fight, ended it, gave Cejudo the TKO victory. Now, I will say that both of the fighters who lost, I'm referring to Anthony Smith and Dominic Cruz. More particularly Dominic in this instance, because in the post-fight interview, he took the high road and he said himself that it was his fault for allowing himself to be put in that position where the referee had to call the fight because of the knee that Cejudo hit him with. And even Anthony said, he understood that it was a tough call. Even though he wanted to keep going, he respected the decision that was made. So shout out to both of the fighters, even after taking some L's, even though Anthony's L was nasty. Shout out to both of them for taking the high road. But it just, to see that, man, just figuring out which way to go with this. And it makes me think about what my man Darren here was saying about how the refs get a raw deal. But is there any real way around that? I mean, forget about the trying to help. You can't please everybody. That's just the reality. That's not going to happen. But just seeing, I don't know. Is there any right way to do that? Okay, so let me start by saying I did not agree with Dominic Cruz's loss. I felt as though he could have continued. He was getting up. He was attempting to, he even said it, even though he agreed, not that he agreed, because he clearly disagreed. He understood why it happened. He just, the ref always tells you, there are even times you can hear the ref telling the fighter, show me something or I'm going to stop the fight. Show me something or I'm going to stop the fight. They're expecting the fighter to defend themselves. If the fighter can't physically defend themselves, then it's a justifiable cause for them to stop. So Dominic was like, I was getting up to defend myself. How are you expecting me to defend myself if you're not giving me the opportunity to? And he had a good point. As far as Anthony Smith's case is concerned, with the beating that he took from Glover Teixeira, I really think that they waited too long. Like the amount of damage that he took with that beating, you're getting to a point where it's now dangerous in regards to the fighter's health. But now, but then again, I asked it the previous week, and I asked it the week before that. Like, where's your mark? What's the measuring stick? At what point do you stop and say, well? And of course, it's always left up to the judge's discretion. But at what point do you say, or what point do you use the mark to say, okay, that's enough. He's done enough. It's over with. He's had enough. Because if using the UFC 249 fight with Cejudo and Cruz, clearly I don't think it was enough because Dominic, he was well within his wits. He didn't seem hurt. He didn't seem injured. He was getting up to defend himself. But for whatever reason, the ref decided to stop it. Now, Anthony Smith's case, I feel as though that mark was way past the threshold. That fight should have been stopped minutes and minutes before it got to the point where he had took such a substantial amount of damage. It just makes me think. It makes me wonder, man. Like, at what point do you say, okay, you're done. You had enough. And I pulled up a tab. Give me 1 second here. I'll get to it. But I looked back with me doing some research, putting together the notes for this particular show. And I pulled up 2 tabs. One was a list of deaths and or critical injuries sustained in or after boxing. And the other one was the same for MMA. And there were a lot more people on these lists than I had imagined. And well, let me say the boxing one in particular, was a statistic that dates back, I'm not sure if they started recording it then, well, obviously it did, but dates back all the way to 1926, when you had someone dying, at least as far back as they've been recording, someone dying due to injuries they sustained during or after a fight. So I mean, I know we discussed this in the 2 previous shows, but I figured I knew I was gonna make this a topic because I'm curious to know at what point do you stop it. But yes, just looking at the list, and you know what a great example of this is would be the late great Muhammad Ali. And now Muhammad Ali was diagnosed in 1984 with the Parkinson's condition. And that's a condition that you acquire due to the amount of blows that one can take when you're dealing with concussions and CTE and things of that nature. And of course, Ali was able to continue. When I say continue, it didn't kill it. But you can see the amount of damage that he suffered due to that, man. He just wasn't the same. He wasn't able to have the same quality of life after that, man, and I'm sitting here looking at the list. This is the boxing list. I haven't crossed over or pulled up the MMA tab yet. You had someone in November of 91, died 9 days after being knocked out. Somebody named Clive Sibeku. These are just random names I'm pulling out of this long-ass list. Jimmy Garcia, May of 1995. Died 13 days after his fight due to a blood clot on the brain. Uncle Charlie, what's good, man? Hey. Touch that noise. Now, you had Felix Mbairo. He was knocked down 3 times in his final rounds of his fight, December of 97. Died 9 days later. And again, I'm just pulling random names off of the list. Mike Tower fought in September of 2016. Died the following day due to injuries. Michael Norgrove, March of 2013. Collapsed in round 5 of his fight. Died in April 6 without regaining consciousness. I could go on and on. This is a pretty extensive list. And it appears as if that the list is almost as extensive looking at the MMA tab. And these are lists that I've pulled up after Googling the amount of deaths and or significant injuries that have been sustained during the boxing. One list is boxing, one list is MMA. And so the dangers of these two sports, or combat sports in general, being and or leading to fatalities is real. It's very real. Listen, I'm a BJJ guy. I've had a shoulder dislocated. I've had a wrist fractured. What else? I had a tooth. I'm not going to show y'all the bottom part of this chipped tooth right here. But this happened wrestling in high school. Listen, man, the dangers of combat sports is real. And thinking about said dangers, it just makes you wonder. I sit and meditate on the level of responsibility that a lot of these referees and a lot of these corners have when it comes to the protection of the fighter. It makes you think, man. And the I'm not sure if I can't even say if that's a responsibility that I would or would not want to have. To me, that would be a dream job. But just thinking about, you can go as far as to say that fighter's life could be in your hands, man. Knowing the level of danger that they could be put in. It's crazy, man, just to think about it, how dangerous it could actually be. But yeah, I know we had talked about that for quite some time. Just wanted to hint at that for a bit. Yeah, man. So before we roll out, I know next week, again, I keep saying it, but next week, depending on the result of Wednesday's meeting, then we will have the events of a UFC Fight Night that will happen hopefully this Saturday to discuss, and we'll take a look at the following event if they get the green light. That following Saturday, which will be June 6th, they are scheduled to have UFC 250. I think the UFC is trying to get back to, again, some level of normalcy and not have all of their fights in Fight Island. I'm not sure if they're discussing the ability to have fans at this event at the UFC Center in Vegas. I'm not sure if that's on the docket to have them there. They'll probably do another one without the fans in attendance. But my man Justice, hard sparring during training and fight camps. Hey, that doesn't help as well. Hey, Justice, I'm not sure if you have. I've had my bell rung a couple times, man. It is not a comfortable feeling. I wish my best friend Martin was on here. He was on here last. I talked to him quite a bit on the Facebook feed last week. He is a black belt in Taekwondo. And just me and him goofing around sparring. He's rung my bell a couple times, man. I wish he was over here again. Listen, I don't know. Like, I am definitely an advocate for fighter protection. And I know, of course, the fans want to see the big finish. They want to see the spectacular knockout. They want to see the excitement with the broken bones and the blood and the gore and the knocking the guy's mouthpiece across the ring. And all that is great. It sells tickets. It attracts fans. It draws the crowds. It's wonderful. I get it. I want to see it too. But I don't want to see it at the cost of someone's funeral. You know what I mean? So, I don't know, man. You got to have a measuring stick, and you got to have a medium somewhere. You got to have a balance. You just do. You got to think, man, a lot of those dudes, man, they got families that depending on the fight persons to take care of. This is their job. They're using this to take care of their families, their wives, their kids. Take care of their mom. Who knows? You never know, man. Which means they need to continue to fight to acquire income. And once they can't, then they can't. You have a few fighters who are luckily in good health and retire with all of their wits and health intact to be able to make the transition to coaching or working the corner or sitting behind the booth in the announcement arena. There's different factors involved, man. So, but you never want to see somebody get hurt to the point where the injury could be considered life-changing or life-altering or even fatal. You just don't want to see it go that far. But the $1 million question is, how far is that far? And apparently that's usually left up to either the judge's discretion or that fighter's corner's discretion, or sometimes both. Whichever one steps in first, usually. You never know, man. But always awesome talking to y'all, bro. Listen, fam, we'll be back next Sunday. Hopefully we'll have an event to talk about the results thereof, and also we'll have an upcoming event to discuss. And whatever else is happening in the world of combat sports. Appreciate y'all. Love y'all. See y'all next week. Signing off. Talk to you later, fam.